What a time to be alive. As of the time of this recording, we are still relatively fresh on the back of a new presidency. President Trump is back for his second term, along with Elon, of course, and Elon's first term in the White House, I believe, to my knowledge. And most notably, President Trump has decided to slap tariffs on essentially all of the U.S.'s major trading partners. The stock market took, last I checked, about a 10 to 15% dip on the back of that news. And there's a lot of just kind of uncertainty. I think folks in the U.S. are obviously going to start seeing increased prices as a result of the tariffs. The tax gets passed down to the consumer ultimately. Businesses are reportedly starting to adjust their spending. There are obviously, a waterfall of consequences that will come from the new tariffs, and consultants are worried. What does this mean for me? Do I need to do anything about this? Will this affect me? How will it affect me? And so we wanted to record an episode and just talk about how you might respond to the most recent wave of economic uncertainty as a B2B consultant.
It's probably worth saying, though, that this is just the most recent wave, and anything we talk about today is likely to become relevant over and over again as time goes by. This may feel particularly dramatic in this moment, but we've recently lived through COVID recently, still feels recent, and other things are going to happen. I think what we really want to dig into today is how to function in uncertainty, and that uncertainty may come from, large global disruptive events. That uncertainty may come from something that's happening in your market. That uncertainty may come from something that's happening closer to home. But the real question is, how can you react, and how can you make sure that it doesn't just take you down to a very dark place, which is what's happening to some folks right now.
Yeah, it's worth noting that I think it's really hard to argue that this is more dramatic than COVID. I mean, COVID was dramatic, right? Everything changed for everybody. So some of you may be listening to this and thinking, well, actually, I have been affected by this economic uncertainty. We have clients, for example, whose clients are very directly affected by the tariffs because their supply chain's been affected. And so this might feel pretty significant. And some of you may not be feeling this at all. I think COVID is an interesting example because everybody felt it. It affected everybody in a really tangible way, business and personally. So, Carrie and I were talking earlier about, well, didn't we do something on this before? Yeah, we did. We've had an episode like this, but everyone needs a reminder, and it's good to add, I think, some nuance to the current uncertainty that folks are feeling as well. First question I think, Carrie, we need to tackle is, do I need to do something? Because the default response for most folks is going to be, weather the storm, put my head down and hope it all goes away. Is that bad? Is that okay? Am I a bad person if I do that, Carrie?
Not a bad person, but what's interesting about that is I think that we contribute to that as well, right? We're very clear with people about, finding clarity around what market they want to serve and what they want that to look like, and sticking with it, not just giving up as the wind blows you around. But what we're talking about now is when you need to make a decision to do something different. So I think, there's something about being able to sit back and really pay attention to what's going on and focus on the reality as opposed to just the panic that you might be feeling right now. The reality in terms of, what this is potentially doing to your business or how this is potentially affecting your business, and making a decision about, what you need to do. The reality right now for a lot of people is that they do need to do something different because there is enough uncertainty out there that a lot of clients, a lot of potential clients are making different decisions than they would have 6 months ago. And so there's no kind of black and white, should I change, should I not change my approach? But what we want to talk about today are the kinds of changes that you probably need to make when there's something big happening around you.
Yeah, I think that's good nuance. Like, some of you maybe need to be less dramatic about the action that you take than others. So know where you're at, know how you're currently affected and how you might be affected. But I think also note that where there's change, there is opportunity. So, frankly, I would prefer you put your opportunistic glasses on right now. And instead of thinking about defense and maintaining and preserving, start thinking about offense. Start thinking about going forward and creating new opportunity, because where there's change and where there's disruption, new opportunity always emerges. Countless examples of that from COVID. So as we go through our kind of list of recommendations today, I want you to be thinking about, how do I take advantage? How do I capitalize? How do I move forward in this market and in this economy?
Mm-hmm.
Sound good?
Sounds great. And I think, the good news is that even though some of your approaches may change, the real strategies in a lot of cases don't. So one of the things we talk about all the time is getting out there and listening to your customer, right? Understanding what they need, understanding what they want. The way you respond to that may shift, and we'll talk about that. But what doesn't shift is the fact that you still need to be out listening. In fact, you need to be out listening even more than you probably did before, because you need to, instead of, deciding that how people feel, deciding that how people are reacting, you need to really, be boots on the ground, understanding exactly what's happening for your particular market.
Well, let's start there. Right. Step number one here. We're going to give you 5 steps today, folks. Step number 1 is get a pulse on what your market needs. Get a pulse on what your market needs. Now, Carrie alluded to this, but essentially, don't assume that your market's unaffected. Don't assume that they're thinking the same way they did 6 months ago. Don't assume that their emotions haven't changed, or their needs haven't changed, or their priorities haven't changed, or how they see their party. Don't make any of these assumptions, because the reality is that everybody is in some shape or form going to be affected, whether it's by the tariffs or the kind of cascading effects of the tariffs. Like, everyone's going to be affected. And you need to get a really, really strong pulse on how your market is feeling about the future, right? And it's not about the tariffs necessarily. It's not about the economy. It's not about GDP. It's about whatever your particular buyer persona, your target market is trying to achieve. You have to now recontextualize how they feel about the goals they have, the objectives they're trying to achieve in light of the current dynamics. For example, are they burying their heads in the sand and waiting for it to pass? Or are they looking to take more offensive action? Are they looking to take more concrete measures? So you need to understand how they're feeling about the current situation, what they're doing with their projects, and how they're feeling about the future as a result of what's going on.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight, you said it a few times, how they're feeling. And the reality is that what you're worried more about now is about how they're feeling than the reality, quite frankly. Because you may have people that have outsized reactions to what's happening. You may have people who are, like you said, burying their head in the sand. You need to understand more about their feelings. I mean, that should always be what you're digging into, what you're trying to get a read on. But you need to understand that now more than you ever did. And you can't assume that the way that you're feeling is the way that everybody else is feeling. So really listening from a, objective place is the thing that's going to get you the value that you need right now.
Well, let's go ahead and address what the B2B consultant right now is thinking. Hey guys, these are real businesses, and these are, senior level executives and decision makers. Like, what are their feelings matter? Well, feelings drive action. Feelings drive behavior, right? We do things either to pursue a feeling or to escape a feeling. So if your market is feeling uncertain right now and they're lacking confidence, they're going to do things to escape those feelings. And if they want to feel more secure, more stable, they're going to do things to secure those feelings. And so, I get the end of the day, like, you're not going to sell a consulting service that's focused on feelings. That's not what we're saying here. But we do have to understand that feelings are the context of action. They're what surrounds the action. They're what drives the action. And understanding of the specific feelings that your clients currently have, your market currently has, are going to help you position your offer to deliver on the feelings that they want.
Because that's the next question, right? Okay, understand their feelings. They're worried, I'm worried, everybody's worried. Now what do I do?
So step number 2, now that we know what your market is feeling and thinking both important. Step number 2 is tie your offer more directly to what clients need right now. And I would add to this potentially create a new offer if you need to that ties to what your clients need right now. So, this may be a bigger pivot for some than others. It may mean that what you're currently selling is still what the market needs, but you could tie it more directly to what they're currently feeling and experiencing in terms of pain points. You could build a closer link there. And it may mean that you need to kind of park what you've been selling up until now if it's not really getting traction and they're not prioritizing it, and come up with a new offer that more directly ties to what they need in the immediate until the market recovers and the economy becomes more stable and some of the fear resides. And then, by all means, if it's relevant at that point, bring back your current offer. But the point here is, for most people, there's going to be one of those two pivots is required, either an adjustment to your current offer to more directly tie to what clients need right now, or a new offer altogether.
And when you think about pivots, so, we're talking about pivots in terms of understanding what your client needs and wants right now. Are there any general rules of thumb in this kind of scenario that you would consider when making a pivot?
I mean, first of all, good place to start here is by talking to existing clients. So we didn't really specify that in step one. Should you talk to existing clients or prospective clients? Ultimately both, but a good place to start here is talking to existing clients and really getting a sense of what they need. They know you, they like you, they trust you, or even previous clients. They understand your capabilities beyond what your marketing proposition might be. They really know what it's like to work with you. So a good kind of litmus test here is, what can I do for my current clients or previous clients? What problems can I solve for them that they're experiencing right now? And then you can use that potentially to see if there's a broader need for that particular type of offer in the market at large with prospective clients. So I would start with people that already know, like, and trust you, current, previous clients, and see what they need. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
That's step 2. Step 3 is to move from a soft value proposition to a hard value proposition. Anna Lasky and I did a whole episode on this a few weeks ago, but briefly what we're saying here is that in stronger, more abundant economic conditions, some people get by with a pretty weak value proposition, right? Consultants can do well on the back of their network and their referrals and their relationships, and as long as folks have a general appreciation for what your capability set is, you could get in there and you could do some interesting things. That's not true in more challenging, less abundant economic times when budgets are tighter and the grip on those budgets are tighter. The budgets themselves are tighter, and the grip on those budgets are tighter. And clients are less willing to, shell out money for less concrete deliverables and propositions. And so the idea of a hard value proposition is it's very clear, it's very specific. You're going to move a metric. You're going to deliver on something very concrete. The outcome is clear, it's specific, it's meaningful, it's tangible, and you're clear with your prospect, your buyer, and how you're going to achieve that outcome. It's not, let me come in and do some work. It's not, let's try some things. It's not, let's get started on this project. It's, we are going to work together towards a very clear and specific aim, objective, KPI, metric, whatever it is. So the client knows, because right now, I think what's important to understand is that clients are wary of being irresponsible with their funds. Right? In any kind of uncertain time, people are going to want to be more responsible, want to be more diligent in where and how they allocate their resources. You're probably doing this right now in your household budget. So the more concrete and specific you are about the proposition, the outcome, the goal, the more the client feels responsible in allocating resources towards it. And the softer you are, the less clear, the less specific, the more they feel a little bit irresponsible putting money there.
So it's interesting. A question for you to further elaborate on this. Are you suggesting that when times are good, that's not as necessary?
I'm suggesting that when times are good, that's not as necessary, assuming that you want to maintain status quo. Now, the opportunistic side of you should be thinking, well, if I can strengthen my value proposition now, then when times are good, I'm really going to make a killing. And that's absolutely true. And that's, I think, a broader point to make about this entire circumstance is this is an opportunity to tighten and refine and make your business stronger and build a stronger foundation. Once you have a stronger, more relevant, harder, more specific value proposition, and then the economy starts booming, don't go back to the way things were, because that will perform even better now than your old value proposition or offer used to perform.
Amazing. Makes sense. Step 4.
Step 4, make it easier to get started. Make it easier to get started. So a lot of times what happens is if you're selling a $50,000, $100,000 multiple six-figure consulting service, there's a lot of trust that has to get developed in order to engage with something that high ticket. And again, back to the point about clients wanting to feel responsible, they're not going to feel responsible if they jump into a very expensive, six-figure consulting engagement with very little interaction with you or relationship building or trust building with you. And so one of the ways that you can mitigate this risk, and this is, again, one of those things, to your point, that's just a good idea overall, but now it's a good opportunity to implement it, is to come up with some kind of a front-end offer that's lower dollar value, helps the client get started, bites off a piece of the work, so you're still on the path of getting the thing done, but gives them a simpler entry point into a relationship with you, and gives you the opportunity to start to get to know the client, build trust, build a working relationship, and ultimately make them feel more comfortable jumping into your higher ticket, more expensive offer down the road. So this bypasses some of the trust issues that you might experience in this market, where, again, they want to feel more responsible with where they're spending their money.
Amazing. Step 5?
Step 5, last but not least. Now is the time to double down on expanding your network. So let's say, for example, there are, 40, 50 people out there in your network that know, like, and trust you. And a lot of your business is coming directly from them or from the referrals or the introductions that they're making. And you're feeling now that, given the current market conditions, that's a little bit tight. Like, you're not getting as many referrals or introductions or direct business. Now is the time to expand that network, right? Because perhaps if you doubled it, you went from 50 to 100, kind of warm connections who know, like, and trust you, you wouldn't have a problem. You would just have, even if you didn't change anything else, frankly, you would just have more opportunity to draw from, because the pool would be larger. The opportunity pool would be larger. The network would be larger. And so, like, now is the time to really double down on relationship building, marketing, going out and building more relationships with prospective clients, with folks who can refer to you, with potential strategic partners, and mitigating your risk that way, because many of you are suffering from really concentration risk in your network. You've got a small network of people who can refer business to you or can hire you. And if they're not hiring and they're not referring, then you're out of luck. And so the solution to that is to double down and expand your network.
I think what's really interesting about all 5 steps, unless you came up with a 6th.
No.
Just 5.
It could be 10, but we'll keep it at 5 for today.
There could be 10. We'll keep it at 5. I think what's really interesting about all 5 steps that we've talked about is that these are not new tactics, right? These are not new strategies. They're not different than things that we advise people to do in general. But what we're talking about is when times are more challenging, when times are tough, really digging in and, doing the right thing, because you have to right now, right? You need to, it's necessary. But also recognizing, as you said earlier, that this is what strengthens your business ongoing. And this is what, gives you a bit of buffer against whatever the next crisis is that comes along. If you know how to do these things, and if you can do them, not just when things are, a little bit anxiety provoking, but you can do them all the time, this is what ensures that you have that, pipeline that is dependable. This ensures that you have clients who want to work with you, and this ensures that you're able to keep a strong and thriving business no matter what the economic conditions.
And I think there's there's a conversation to be had here about what this does to you in terms of your mindset and your energy. I'm recalling a client who, when she came into the program, was struggling, didn't have a pipeline at all. Clients had dried up, no revenue coming in, and was really kind of entering, panic mode. And but did the right thing and decided not to, rest on her laurels or bury her head in the sand, and ended up jumping into 90-day pipeline. And the comment she made, about halfway through the work, give or take, was she feels like she's being productive, like she's doing the right things in the right order. It's the right activities are the right things to do. They feel appropriate. They feel responsible. She's starting to see kind of the gears turning, and that changed her attitude. That changed her mindset from, fear, panic, worry to hope, abundance, and expectation. And that shift was, in her case, kind of the precursor to some fantastic results. And so if you're feeling a little bit helpless right now, these action items are hopefully going to get you, kind of out of your head and into the world and solving problems.